Hello and welcome to another basefan.com video. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Iveco minibus for a camper conversion project. So I've got a couple of these in stock, and I've sold quite a few at this point. I'm probably into the early 50s. And for the most part, I've seen some very happy customers that have had them for years. But there is a couple of things that perhaps I wasn't as informed with when I first started selling them, you know, when I was 19 or 20 years old, that I am now. For example, when people buy one of these things, they think, great, there's a lot of space, good spec, and then when they get it home and start designing a few things, they realise actually that having no side loading door is a bit of a pain. That's probably the biggest concern really as a camper conversion project, because getting a seat in there is fairly difficult. I mean, let's just imagine a situation whereby we take this out here, we utilise human tracking, and we put a folding seat. That's okay, but actually on long-term journeys and everything else, they're not particularly comfy seats. You must have seen them. In fact, I must have an example somewhere as well. I'll run over. I'll make this video as in depth as possible. So let's go over to Yard 2 HQ. Right. This is going to work pretty well actually, because I wanted to discuss a few things about that bus. So, where have we put the seat? Here we go. So I'm going to come in through the offside, which is actually the worst way of coming in to show you this. Come through here, get that door open like that, turn the ignition back off. So anyway, here we have it, coming in. So it's virtually the same bus design. Though this one's actually made by Leicestershire Carriage Builders, but have since gone into liquidation. But yeah, I've put this seat in here for this customer. We haven't used the element tracking on this one, but bolted it through and put some spreading weight plates underneath. As you can see, a seat like this isn't going to be the comfiest thing in the world. Just there we go. I'm on my holidays. I'm on a 4-hour journey to Cornwall, and tell you what, I wish I wasn't sat in this bus. So yeah, that's something to consider. Of course, a way around it is having a very antisocial journey. So just being seated in the back. So that's that point raised. Another point that's very crucial is a lot of people buy minibuses, and me too. Obviously that's kind of my business, and they buy them, they can't really properly inspect these buses. So what I've started doing is, when they come in, looks like a minefield now, isn't it? I've started ripping the floors out. Generally speaking, the floors aren't that good anyway. There's unwind tracking everywhere, it's difficult to put liner over the top, and crucially, I've had customers buy stuff off me, and then they've decided, a couple of years into the project, they're going to start it over again and put a new floor in there, and they soon discover that actually the floor underneath is knackered, particularly over the wheel arch area. Because what they do on these buses is they raise the floor to the extent that it's a floating floor. And there's no sort of bulge upwards for the wheel arches. There's just a consistently flat floor. And when they've done this, it's obviously a modification from factory, and the weld and everything else, it just deteriorates over time. That there is all the crumbling from the modification. And of course, on an MOT, you can't really pick those things up because you're not allowed to touch things, and generally speaking, the councils and the previous owners of these buses underseal thoroughly over this area. So in fact, there's no way, even if you go and look at it really, to get a good understanding of how solid it is. So that's something that's worth considering. You don't really want to be buying a minibus in this day and age, unless it's a Renault Master of Oxford vinyl, which is galvanised, without seeing what it's like from the floor. So, make my way out of here. Hopefully you can see see how it all works out now, just to give you a good idea. And let's just check out the standing height. Okay, that's not bad. Obviously now the standing height, I'm 6'3", I can stand up quite nicely now. But of course you're going to be building a floor on top of that anyway, so that's neither here nor there. Right. The lazy way. We've got a hell of a lot to work on the sister vehicle. We've got a hell of a lot of work to do. So I've got the bad points out of the way. Onto the good points. Iveco's very solid base vehicle. No concerns about the service history to a certain extent, because you know these are change of an engine, so you don't have to worry about cam belts and stuff like that. They are solid tools. You know, the gearboxes are good, the diffs are good. Especially on the 3-litre changeover model. I'm not really a fan of the 2.3. It's a cam belt as well. It's not as good as the changeover. You find these in slightly modified, but in the Ducatos, the Boxers, there's some relays for the first responders. But yeah, I mean, jumping into the back, they don't always have this spec, but you've got the Eberspacher air conditioning unit, which is stationed up here. You've also got the chassis mounted diesel heater. Which is usually a controller here. I've taken it out, or should I say, there's not one there, but it's for good reason. How these systems work is it's a single controller, and on the controller you've got the option to turn the diesel heater on, or you've got the option to turn the air conditioning on, and actually you can't essentially use those items unless the ignition's on. So of course for a camper conversion it's not particularly good. So my proposal is that you have them reconfigured, and it's quite simple, and I can get to that in another video if you like. Someone stealing my golf buggy. Anyway, onto this vehicle in particular, measurements wise, so I've just drawn this out. So I've put UL, which is usable length, which is from here to the rear. You're looking at 4.5 meters, so it's got a fair bit of size. Internal height 1.8 meters, of course with the floor out. You can see there how much you're saving. So actually, yeah, with insulation, you might save an inch actually, because you don't necessarily need this much depth. Internal width, that's 1.85 meters, so that's from this wall here to the other wall. You know, there's going to be no insulation behind here. If you're going to do a good camper van, you're going to be ripping everything out of this bus, and your usable internal width where you're going to be putting the bed is 1.85 meters. So yeah, that's another good point. People are under the idea that these buses are insulated, and in some cases they have Rockwell insulation, which is fine for a day van, but you know, the majority of our customer base are either going to be living in them or fancy a project which they're going to do to a very high standard. Nice that they've got opening windows here at the back. It'd be nicer if they had some in the front as well whilst you're eating and cooking and that sort of stuff, but that's quite nice whilst you're in bed. Generally speaking, what people do here is they insulate over here, leave this window at the top, and go from there. Like someone's on a test drive. I've gone through the tyres, so we've got Michelin's on the front. Looks like we've got a Michelin on the back as well on this side here. The other one's Avon on that side, so at least the two front tyres are Michelin, and they've both got consistent tread depths. The mileage is pretty low, 68,000. It's not a great deal. The MOT was carried out by us So that's looking like 10 months MOT. Transmission 6-speed, chain driven. Right, known faults on this particular vehicle, and they can be a bit of a bugger to get going as well. And you'll find these on all the Irises predominantly. That's a bit of a statement there, isn't it? But you are, generally speaking, you find these reverse cameras on there, and they can be quite difficult to get going again. But once again, that's for us. But if you're doing the conversion, you've got it all stripped back. You can follow the wiring, you can trace things, you can get those sort of things done. What have I written on here? Side door not operating. So I'm going down here and pressing the button. This is also a bit of an issue with these doors here. Can be a bit of a pain, but we'll strip this down. We will get this one going before it leaves our care. Generally speaking, all these sort of things here that you find go wrong on a lot of vans are always quite solid on these. Turn these lights off here. I know that extraction fan's not coming in, but once again, it's a bit outdated technology. Yes, you can save some money, you might save yourself a couple £100, but generally speaking, you want to add some value to your van, make it a little bit more pleasant to live in / use. So I'll probably get rid of that anyway. Right, recommendations. Oh, I've got the recommendation here as remove floor, check welding. So whether we do it for you or whether you have it done, I think what do we charge for a floor? I think it's about £400. So it's probably worth your time to get us to do that sort of thing, to get the floor out, and of course we can get it welded up properly, and then you don't find any horror shows. Another thing here I've put is full chassis underseal, because on these Ivecos they do flake away. The chassis are very flaky. If they do come into stock and they aren't of a sufficient standard, I do put them into an auction. But generally speaking, this one's good. It's got no advisories, but I would go ahead and get it undersealed, so it's going to last. So yeah, I mean, I think I've gone through quite a few things on here. I think I've covered most bases. Hopefully it's been informative. It was just a bit of a spur of the moment sort of video idea really, but I thought I'd go ahead and do it. So yeah. Hope you found this useful. If you have any questions, you can put it in the YouTube comment section, send us a message on Facebook. If you're interested in getting a vehicle, the best thing to do is to go on our website and fill out a website request form. We are getting a hell of a lot of them in at the moment. We are working through them as we can, but that's the best way if you want us to find the right vehicle for you. We're pretty good at it, I think, and would be happy to accommodate your needs. Okay, cheers.